So let's dig right into it. Let's start by defining what rest is. So, in my mind, and the way that I'm defining rest in this scenario, rest is a set period of time where you're allowing your body to recover by either getting more sleep or decreasing activity for, again, that set duration. So the typical adage of having, say, a rest day or 2 rest days per week built into your training cycle is really what we're talking about here. I personally, right now, since technically this is the off season where I'm trying to focus on building speed and making sure that my body stays recovered and performing well, I'm working out 5 days a week right now with 2 rest days, Wednesday and Friday. So coincidentally, today is a rest day, which is why I chose this topic for today. Now, the next logical question would be then, what is rest for? So for that period of time that you're training, what you're really doing is you're breaking down your body and you're creating a lot of micro tears in your muscle fibers and even your tendons and ligaments. Now, these micro tears are not an issue. It's actually the modality that your body uses to initiate growth and strengthening of those muscles. I'm not going to pretend to be some sort of sports scientist or doctor or anything like that, but that's essentially the mechanism that's happening when you're training. Now, what rest does is, even while you're sleeping, that counts as rest. What rest does, or periods of rest, is they allow your body to actually begin recovering that damage that it's taking on during training. So any logical person would understand by just these very minimalistic definitions that rest is essential for your body to recover properly and to grow stronger. So if you're overtraining and under resting, you'll tend to, just break your body down to the point where it'll start to fail or start to reduce its training benefit and start to underperform. Now, you are getting recovery benefit by regularly sleeping on time and getting enough sleep. That's extremely important, and that's also what we're talking about when we speak about rest here. But what I'd really like to dig into are rest days. And the best way to look at these are, or the reason for them are, over the course of, say, 3 or 4 days in a row that you're training hard, your body is accumulating fatigue and strain that it cannot keep up with just by a great night's sleep, say 7 or 8 hours. Like me, for instance, in my case, I ran my 10K race on Sunday, and since Sunday have been pretty sore and pretty achy, even though I trained Monday and Tuesday through the soreness and through the achiness at a much lower intensity. Now, Wednesday, today, not pushing my body to continue to train, today is where I'll start to reap most of the benefit from that Sunday activity. Even, looking at yesterday's run, you would never think, just looking at the pure data, that I was the same runner on Sunday as I was yesterday, because despite my heart rate being great and, taking it slow and easy yesterday, I wouldn't have been able to put out the same effort that I did on Sunday, even if I really wanted to yesterday. And that's just the name of the game. Now, look at me after, say, a few days of rest, or maybe even like a week or two from now, when the body can, continue to build in strength again. I will be a much stronger runner as a result of not only the effort that I put in Sunday and the training leading out of that, but also because of the rest that I'm allowing my body to take, rather than approaching my training from the point of view that I should just keep hammering down and keep training and breaking my body down to the point where it can't recover efficiently. Now, that explains what rest is for. Now, when should you build your rest in? It's a very personal question, and different people have different training split preferences. But the real name of the game here when prescribing your own rest schedule is, how do you feel when you're training consistently, and are you able to notice when you're breaking your body down to the point where you're just heavily fatigued? Okay, so it's best to pre-plan your rest days, of course, but there's something to be said about listening to your body after however many days of performing. And it's also important to not baby yourself so that you can stimulate the appropriate amount of growth. But what you really should be doing is, if you're, say, newer into training, give yourself a 5-day, 2-day split of training versus recovering, and mix those rest days in and try to sandwich in your harder efforts to break them up, right? So typically Tuesday, not this week of course, but Tuesdays would be a harder run, which means that it's only logical for me to have Wednesday as a rest day, Thursday as a moderate run, and then Friday as a rest day again. So that Saturday, a longer, easier effort, Sunday, a longer, easier effort, Monday, an easy effort, can compound and allow me to continue to grow with that kickstart and rest following the hard session. That might sound a bit technical, but that's really the core concept and mechanism that this training plan that I follow is based around. Now, different people need different amounts of rest, of course. So honestly, when you're a beginner, I would err on the side of more rest rather than less rest, because you really don't have a good feel for your body yet. Like me, I can really feel when something is wrong and put my mind in that part of my body that I'm feeling these issues starting to develop in, and identify potential issues much earlier on than, say, a beginner runner who they might not realize that something is wrong with their calf until something bad actually happens. So in the beginning, err on the side of caution. You don't need to be training 6 and 7 days a week, even 5 days a week, to get insane benefits at the beginning of your training career. And it's always better to ease into it. So what I would do is I would start, say you're starting to run, I would start on an every other day jogging cycle at appropriate volume for you. And then if you're into triathlons, then I would start to introduce, say after about 2 weeks, cycling sessions on those in-between days, and then a few strength sessions on some of the easier days for the week, and build yourself up to 5 days total. And then once 5 days total feels comfortable for you, then build up to 6 days total, with the acknowledgement that there's also a way to structure your rest on a weekly basis, around a monthly training plan. So I'll touch on that just a little bit since I brought up the topic. So me, when I do train pretty hard for 5 or 6 days a week, depending on what my focus is at the time, what I'm trying to build in these days is deload weeks, where for a period of about 3 to 4 weeks, I'm building and increasing volume and intensity. And then on that either 4th or 5th week, depending on how I'm choosing to split up my cycle at the time, I will reduce volume greatly to allow my body to recover. So this rest week will be full of activity, but nothing will be so strenuous that it continues to add strain to the weeks that I was building it for the previous weeks. Oftentimes when you're training for an Ironman, you can't get all the rest and recovery that you need within single week periods. So these deload weeks really allow you to make exponential progress in terms of like rest and recovery, and then just training readiness. Like just before this race weekend, so last week, it was technically a deload week for me. Tracking my metrics on my Garmin right here, I peaked, and if you have a Garmin, you know what this means. So you can have productive training, unproductive training, detraining, and recovery, and so on. Peaking basically means that you're race ready. So without having even planned it like this, just taking those few days in that deload week, I think it took up to 3 days, and my body's the metrics that my Garmin was tracking for my health and fitness peaked because of that reduced training volume. And that just goes to show that if you're putting in weeks of consistent hard effort and then following those weeks of consistent hard effort with a deload week, or basically a recovery week at reduced volume, in that recovery week is when your body will technically be reaping the rewards of those 3 weeks of effort. That's just the final point that I wanted to leave you with. Now, if you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, and if you have any questions about any of these topics, then just please reach out in the comments or however you want to reach out. Also, I know there's a few of you who continue to come and check out my daily videos. They are hopefully improving, but I'd really appreciate any of your feedback, how you think things are going, and what you think I can do better to improve this and make it more valuable for you. Okay, have a good one.